concerning fantasy in general, fantasy art, there's also in my mind an ecological side to it, because much of the narratives that are to be found in the images that are in this exhibition promote another connection with nature than simply the commercial one.
Yes.
A question of resources.
Right.
There is in fantasy literature and fantasy art, there's often a connection with nature which is profound, complex, and part of these worlds that the fantasy literature invites us to explore. And I think, in a sense, fantasy can tell us that we need to reestablish a connection, which is not simply economic, with nature and world.
Right.
We need to find something that connects us to it much more deeply than we've had tendency to do in the past. And that is prevalent in fantasy literature. And fantasy literature is full of propositions. It's full of what ifs.
Right.
And these are wonderfully separated from any political consideration. They're entwined in a story. They're woven into a narrative.
Sure.
And we can appreciate them without actually realizing what we're reading. And then you get into the end and you think, oh yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
And that's something that I would like to try and bring through with the art, is that nature is not just a backdrop. It's not just, a weekend thing.
Yeah.
It's an integral part of our lives. It's an actor in our world. And we need to respect that.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Getting Serious with Woody Wade. I'm Woody Wade. Today I'm in Neuchâtel talking to John Howe, who is an artist, a conceptual thinker, and a really interesting person. It's a special Christmas edition of Getting Serious. So we thought we would come here this is called the Tour du Fantastique, which is a special museum about to open featuring John's art. And I think that it's going to be a fantastic conversation. Thank you for joining, and thank you for coming, John.
Okay.
How did the whole Lord of the Rings project sort of come to you?
How did that happen? Yeah, my goodness. I think there was a long build-up, largely unawares on my part, because had done a lot of artwork for Lord of the Rings, but more for publishing.
Right.
So calendars, books, maps, that sort of thing.
And that was because you obviously you were drawn to the story.
I was very much drawn to the story. I spent years petitioning HarperCollins, or the publishers that became registered HarperCollins, to try and get a commission. Without success. For a long time.
Really?
No, I was in my 20s.
Persistence.
Persistence.
For a lot.
And then one day I got a commission, and then one thing led to another, and one thing, and then onwards until when Jackson and his team were looking to start pre-production.
Right.
The general practice is that the writers will literally fill the office walls, the writing room, with art, whatever is related to the project.
Okay.
And it turns out that my British colleague, Alan Lee, and I ended up with a majority of artwork on those walls. And they called us up and had us come down.
Okay.
So it was my first film project.
You're like the art director?
Concept art, lead concept art.
Lead concept,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the art director is the person who takes the sets right through.
Oh, I see.
Okay. And
yes.
Our job is more about providing the visuals.
More like pre.
Yeah, more building the world.
Yeah.
Right. Deciding what things look like. I mean, it was really a clean slate, especially because it was in New Zealand. There was no question of going to shoot in some medieval ruin somewhere.
Yeah.
Everything had to be built.
Right.
So we had a blank canvas to play with, which was really exciting.
That's nice. But you did that in New Zealand, right?
Yes.
So actually, Switzerland. And how long were you there? It must have been quite a long time.
Ages, all told, about 8 years, 8 years, yeah. The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit,
Right.
War of the Rohirrim,
Right.
Rings of Power.
Right.
Is on a few.
So were there long breaks between them?
Oh, yes. Yeah, there were wasn't 8 years. It wasn't 8 years continuous, no. But I just got back last Wednesday from New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so they're lucky to have, yeah.
So just arrived.
Fresh off of the boat.
Fresh off the plane.
Boat
yeah.
or something.
Yeah. So, and probably heading back next year a little bit. So we'll see.
Yeah.
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 But we're in pre-production or early production for the next Lord of the Rings related film. So.
All right.
Yeah.
So this must be like the project of a lifetime, right? Or just like a dream come true, or don't put words on your mouth. What was it?
It's fun. It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. It really is, because it's a chance to be. I mean, there's two things. It's a world which has such depth, width, and density of interests that you can never sort of draw your way through it. There's always more to explore. And secondly, working with a team, which is very different than working at home by yourself.
That's right. Must be.
Yeah, it's a nice change.
Yeah.
It's a big switch, because suddenly you're a very tiny cog in a very big wheel, rather than being your own boss.
Yeah.
And but it's agreeable to sort of float back and forth between the two.
And what was your impression of the final film when the first time you saw it? Let's say the
Lord of the Rings.
The first. Yeah, that was
So I was enchanted. I mean, they're really good films. They really are. They really are, and they stand the test of time. I think that even Warner is going to. They're coming back out in the cinemas for the 25th anniversary. It's been 25 years now.
Is it 20?
Yeah, 25 years. Yeah.
Wow. Seems like yesterday, actually.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but I enjoy the film work very much.
Did you see the film ever in like daily rushes, or was it just?
Well, I wasn't in New Zealand when they were shooting. We'd finished up. I'd finished up. We'd come back to get our son back in school here.
All right. Okay.
So I didn't see the full. Yeah. Well, it depends. I mean, on The Hobbit, I stayed through.
Yeah.
Right through post-production.
Right.
On other projects, it really depends on the director's requirements and desires.
Right.
But and I spent, I think, 3 months in New Zealand on the first season of Rings of Power.
Right. And I guess a lot of the things that you did were actually converted into models then, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Model sets.
Were you involved in that? Or that's model making must be a skill in its own right, right?
It's, you do concept art. And you need to provide as much information as possible in those drawings.
Right.
In the hope that the next craftsperson who comes along can use that to really inform them.
Right.
But on the other hand, you don't necessarily want to sort of pin them down to the last detail. They need space to live too. They need room to breathe.
Okay.
And doing micromanage. Yeah. Well, no, it's really not productive.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of do your best on that level. Let go. See where it goes.
Right.
Offer advice when it's helpful.
Right.
And the same for the sets, and the same for digital sets.
Right.
The digital environments also need to be created and supervised.
So were there any surprises when you saw the film that you thought, oh, that's an interesting thing that they did with my concept?
Yeah. Everything is a surprise. I think ultimately it hinges on the story, on the script, on the actors.
Sure.
And on the story arc and the flow of it all, and it's all part of a whole. Mm-hmm. So it's of course each specialist is pinpointing, the little things they did in any particular scene.
Of course.
But globally, I found it to be on the same wavelength throughout. So amazing cast,
right? Oh yeah,
and yeah.
And then you say that the next one is in the works, right?
It's in the pipeline. Yeah. I can't really tell you anything, but except
one of secrecies.
Or you sign an NDA. A laser from space will zap me if I say anything better. It's
all to happen.
I mean, it's, like any film project, by the time the public hears about it, there's already been, probably 6 months work by a little team, sort of getting everything, prepping everything, getting everything ready. So it's really exploratory. It's really helping, the role of the concept artist is to help the director build the world he's going to have to live in for a couple of years.
This is Peter Jackson again still.
It's not Peter. No, it's not. I know it. Andy Serkis.
Okay. Andy Serkis directs.
Yeah.
He gets out of his Gollum suit and
he will briefly. Yeah.
No, it's nice.
Andy is an amazing, I'm tempted to say human being. He's an amazing creator.
Yeah.
And he's got so many facets. He's just, he's just bursting with energy.
Yeah.
And perceptive, and he's visual.
Just what you want.
Yeah. And, so that's really exciting. And have that, what I really value, above all else, is the exchange you can have with the people who are making the movies. You really leave the feedback. Yeah, you need the feedback. You want to, you propose any drawing is destined to ask as many questions as it is to provide answers. So you're really asking a lot of questions with each drawing. And you need that feedback in order to take it the next step.
Right.
And, sometimes you find a concept really quick. Other times it's a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
And that's really enriching and usually you end up going somewhere you wouldn't have spontaneously done all by yourself on your own.
Yeah.
So that's really important too.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
When you were actually doing concept work, did that also extend to the characters themselves and how they looked?
To a small degree, but costume is quite an independent department.
Yeah.
Costume, hair, makeup are really, really little realms.
Sure.
But everything needs
has to fit.
Everything needs to fit. Yeah. So there, I'm sure there is, I enjoy most of all the possibility to work like an illustrator does, in that you touch on everything. If it strikes your fancy, then you do a quick sketch, and it might be costume, it might be armor, it might be a creature, it might be some other department.
Right.
But I think it's a good idea to do those things if they're useful.
Right.
Great. If they're not, then that's fine.
So you use the word creature. So they are the characters, right? But not necessarily the actors, but
there's so many any fantasy film.
Fictitious, the fantasy creatures that.
Yeah, and so many of them in Tolkien. The eagles, the Nazgul, the Balrog.
Yeah.
It just never stopped. Smaug. Yeah, Smaug was fun. Sorry, I really enjoyed designing Smaug.
Yeah,
it was really, really exciting.
It's fantastic.
And once again with a team of people, because it was all done digitally.
Yeah.
So that means that you provide sketches where there's something missing, and you just keep going until,
right.
But I think concerning Smaug, the most important part was not necessarily designing a dragon. It was designing a character who's shaped like a dragon. Because Smaug is a very particular character.
Yeah.
So I really had that much more in mind than questions of how dragons functioned, And
how old were you when you first read The Lord of the Rings?
I think I was about 12.
12?
Yeah.
I think.
But I read it. I mean, I'm ashamed to admit, but I tell this story every time.
Sure.
I waited and waited and waited for the Fellowship of the Ring to appear at the local library.
Right.
And it never appeared because obviously people take it out, keep it a month, don't read it, bring it back, someone else has it.
Right.
So I finally got fed up and read The Two Towers and The Return of the King, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then finally read the Fellowship of the Ring after, and I thought this book makes no sense. It's all backwards. And obviously it was a catastrophic decision. So my impatience drove me to ruin my first reading of Lord of the Rings. But I read it later on in the right order. But I had a very, at 12, it's a very adolescent read.
Sure.
You're fascinated by the extraordinary things, the monsters, the battles,
right.
And it's only later on that you learn to appreciate more and more.
Right.
Yeah.
But obviously the mental images were already forming in your mind even then, right?
They were. And coincidentally, the first Tolkien calendars were appearing not too long afterwards.
Yeah.
I think a few years after the first one, I think was in 74 or 75. So I was just finishing high school, and I remember getting the calendar And every month I would do my own version of the scene.
Oh.
Thankfully none of those pictures have survived, but it was
Historical documents.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's So I was there was a call, if you like, from that text,
right,
to be illustrated, because as you read, and if you're a visual person, the images just jump out of the text. I mean, Tolkien writes in images very much. And so it's so rich. It's almost hard to, you can't stop the image from appearing.
Right.
And so yeah, one thing after another, and here we are.
Let me ask you one thing. You probably get asked this a lot, I guess, but I've read this many times that Lauterbrunnen influenced Tolkien in his thinking of what Rivendell should look like. First of all, is that right? Is that true?
It is absolutely correct. Okay. In 1911, when he was 19 years of age, Tolkien made his famous trek across the Alps in company of his great aunt and 9 other people.
Okay.
And they left Interlaken, went up through Grindelwald, Lauterbrunnen, right, over the Alps to the Valais.
Oh.
And this was in August 1911. I think it was about a 10-day hike.
Okay.
So they were sleeping in where they could, in huts, in bars.
Right.
And if you imagine the Alps in 1911, so this amazingly hot summer of 1911, no ski resorts, no high voltage wire,
right.
No dams,
no parking garage,
no parking garages. Literally the Alps, as they would have been for thousands of years.
Yes.
And it must have been majestic. It must have been awe-inspiring. And
majestic,
but it still is. But it's got another, it's got another layer of civilization over it.
Yeah.
And I think it's impossible for us to imagine how he must have been struck by that, the enormity of the Alps. His first trip abroad. So even though he was born in South Africa, he emigrated to England with his mum when he was...
How old would he have been in 1911?
It was in 1911, yes.
How old was he?
Oh, he was 19.
He was 19.
So a perfect age.
Yeah.
And they had an adventure. It must have been a real adventure.
Yeah.
And that stayed with him. And these images stayed with him. And he didn't keep a diary at the time, right? Unfortunately for us. But he did write about his trip many, many years later. And it is clearly the Alps that are in Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Interesting.
So Switzerland is right smack in the middle of the map of Middle-earth.
But now, did you actually come up with the concept for Rivendell?
Based on Lauterbrunnen?
Well, this is the question that I'm thinking you must be asked all the time, whether the real life Lauterbrunnen actually influenced you in coming up with what this fictional place should look like.
I think that a real life, but imagined Lauterbrunnen.
Right.
So
well, obviously they're not exactly the same.
No, I think what I find inspiring in Lauterbrunnen, and goodness, there's a lot to be inspired by, goes directly into that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've never made a conscious effort. I don't go and say to myself, right, I have to put in, this and this ingredient.
Right.
It's whatever strikes you.
Okay.
And when you're struck by, a landscape,
yes,
it goes in somewhere.
Right.
It's going to appear. That I think that's. I mean, it's a real reflection on the nature of inspiration, because Tolkien I don't believe he used the Alps on purpose, but the image that remained was so strong that when it was the right time, it simply appeared in his work. And it's the same thing for me with landscapes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of New Zealand in my landscapes, because
must be.
Because it's a very inspiring landscape. There's a lot of Switzerland. There's a lot of the Jura. A lot of the other side. Towards the Alps.
Okay.
And it's all about these things that your mind sort of takes on, stores away, and keeps upstairs in the attic.
Right.
And you don't need to think about it. You don't need to organize it. You don't need to have a checklist.
Right.
But when the right story, the right image, the right narrative comes along, right, it just comes, right, automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's more of a memory than an actual sketch.
Yes. I mean, there are two aspects to it. One, fantasy needs an additional level of credibility in order to be understood.
Right.
And people have to, what we call the willing suspension of disbelief.
Right.
And so that means that you need visual credibility, which means lots of photographs to work from later on.
Right.
But also you can't delegate that chore just to your camera. You need to have an emotional experience in that landscape.
Okay.
And that emotional experience with the accompanying documentation is what will be credible.
Oh.
And if you don't feel anything for the landscape, it's not going to work no matter how many details you put in. So you really need to have that emotional connection that pushes you to use it. You need the backup in order for it to be realistic, because that's the style that I work in. And all that in the hope that whatever it was you felt at the time, you're able to sort of transmit through this work into that narrative.
Okay.
So the two are really important. It's easy to take 1 billion photographs. Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily as easy to retain what you should. And sometimes doing a sketch is a good idea, because that means you're stuck there for a little while. You need to really look. You need to really understand the volume, the space, the atmosphere. And that is your intangible guide, if you like, through all the documentation.
Interesting. But it's all here, right?
Yeah, emotionally it's all there, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
It's not copying a photo that you
it's not just probably, no. I mean, sometimes you need that photo to really get the little details right.
Yes.
You want to get the trees right and the rocks and all of that. It's that's important.
Right.
But, and you want people to forget that it's not real.
Yeah.
And you want it to remain nonetheless. You don't want to pack it with detail. Otherwise, you want to leave it open so people can step in and have a little walk around. Oh. And every image should be an invitation to walk inside.
Yeah, that's great. That's sort of like a nice instruction manual for anybody who's trying to create a world from.
It has to be inviting. I mean, it has to resonate somehow with the public. If it doesn't, then, it's simply the public will be indifferent.
So, based on that, let me come all the way back to when you first moved to Switzerland. You studied what? Let's start at the very beginning, but as well, we didn't do that yet. You were born in Vancouver, right?
That's right.
So you are Canadian.
Yes.
You then studied in. You first studied the engineering, right? No,
I went to an American college in Strasbourg.
It's an American college. Okay.
Initially, the first year was in an American college studying art, generally.
Okay.
And which used up all my savings, of course. And then the next year, I enrolled at the French art school.
All right. So I read about this switch into the art track.
Okay, that's
and I understood it differently. I thought that you'd actually
studied something else.
Well, okay, that you've actually been doing that in Canada.
Okay, no, I did nothing in Canada except leave.
Interesting.
I finished high school, and the next year I was in France. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So then you were in Strasbourg.
Yes.
And after finishing in Strasbourg, which was 3 or 4 years, I imagine.
3 years.
3 years. That's when you and your wife-to-be said, let's go to Switzerland.
That's right.
What was the draw there? What was it? Why Switzerland and why Neuchâtel?
Well, it was initially, and we went to Lausanne to work on an animated film project,
right?
And which carried on for a while before disappearing. And then eventually, it sounds a bit trite, but Neuchâtel looks so nice from the train.
Mm-hmm.
We were going back and forth between Lausanne and Strasbourg, and every time we went through Neuchâtel, we thought, oh, that looks really pretty. And so we ended up here.
Okay.
And we've been here ever since.
Yeah.
But when we arrived in Switzerland, I am appalled by my ignorance of the country. I had no idea what language they even actually spoke, because we'd heard conflicting reports of several languages being spoken in this tiny little country.
Right.
And we didn't know we didn't know anything about Switzerland at all. So it was discovery after discovery.
Okay.
And that's continued on until today, actually.
Right.
It's one of those countries that's complicated to understand and needs time to be appreciated.
Yeah. So after you moved to Switzerland, or decided Neuchâtel is going to be the place where we'll settle, did you ever think that you maybe should go somewhere else, or was Neuchâtel actually got its velvet claws in you at that time, and you said this is the spot?
We were honestly, being two foreigners, we were looking for somewhere where we could both be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Switzerland seemed to be welcoming in the sense that everything is quite cozy and small.
Mm-hmm.
A big city in Switzerland is 100,000 people is a big city.
Right.
And there's no need for us to be in any vast metropolis to find work. We don't need to be anywhere actually to work. Most of the work takes place with people on the other side of the world.
Right.
So Switzerland seemed nice. There's Neuchâtel seemed lovely. There's a lake.
Yeah.
There's an old town.
Right.
It was very much the end of the road at that time.
Yeah.
1985, the freeway hadn't yet been built.
Right. Yeah.
And it felt pleasurably remote, but nonetheless well connected.
Yeah.
And we learned to appreciate the trains. We learned to appreciate, everything about Switzerland.
Sure.
And we're simply here today.
Yeah. All these years later.
Years later.
Tell us a little bit about your impression of the quality of living here. When you say you like it, then that's great. You've stayed all these years, so
Switzerland is a sort of puzzle of paradoxes. In that it wasn't always a rich country.
Right.
It was an extremely poor country. Even a century ago. It's a country that I appreciate because it's at a crossroads. Everyone goes through Switzerland to get across the Alps. So it's one of these wonderful countries where it's as if all of these European stories that go from north to south and east to west all come through Switzerland. And it's as if they sort of get stuck on the Alps because they snag and they sort of settle in.
Right.
And I appreciate the how can I say this? The incredible complexity of the Swiss arrangement amongst its citizens, where you have half of the population who doesn't necessarily speak the same language as the other half.
Right.
Everything seems to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite remarkable.
Right.
And I've always appreciated the fact that the Swiss can squabble amongst themselves, but they present a united front when it's really important.
Yes.
And
that's absolutely true. Yeah.
That seems to me to be quite a lesson actually in democracy, because no one is ever really happy. No one ever gets 100% of what
compromising.
There's always a compromise, and that's what life and society is all about. It's all about making things work for everyone.
Right.
And I find that to be remarkable, especially in a world where it's the polarization is evident, and that's not a good thing. And because Switzerland has managed to actually set the rules in its political system to actually favorize that compromise is remarkable.
Yeah. It's become systematic here, which is the amazing thing,
and the fact that
it's expected by everyone, right?
And expected by everyone, and that's you have to work with that.
Yeah,
and such a small country with so many languages.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, most of the Latin-based ones have disappeared from the Swiss romand, but but that sort of patchwork, which remains, and which is one of the qualities of each canton, right? I think is also quite remarkable. And I recall very distinctly the critics of the European Union saying that everything is going to dissolve into a sort of European soup, And, well, no, look at Switzerland.
Right.
You know, I mean, Neuchâtel and La Chaux-de-Fonds can't even get along. You know, nothing's going to, nothing's going to change overnight.
Right.
You know, so it's, so I appreciate that complexity, because that complexity is a reflection of a very rich history, often a difficult history.
Yeah.
The slow incremental creation of a country.
Yes.
The mythologization, if you like, of the history, I also appreciate.
Sure.
You know, anything to do with William Tell, the lake dwellers, all of those things I find absolutely fascinating.
Right.
The lake dwellers are one of my hobbies, and I am delighted to live just a few miles from Lausanne, which which is just down at the end of the lake.
Right.
And you know,
other people who built their houses on poles or on pillars in the lake, right?
that is the idea.
Yeah.
It is a total fiction.
Really?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's a bit long to go through, but at the time when it was discovered, the Swiss were looking for an ideal ancestor.
Oh.
So this were early, you know, late 19th century.
Okay.
You know, the little tiny nation is surrounded by very ambitious nation states.
Right.
And each one of these is finding its own sort of justification for its integrity, if you like.
Yes.
And so Switzerland was eager to find something, and this whole idea of the lake dwellers appeared. I mean, it's quite a long story, but they were ideal ancestors because they didn't live in the Alps, because that's a little bit, you know, the troublemakers live in the Alps. They lived on the plateau, where the industrialization was happening. The railroads were being built.
Right.
They were far enough back in history so that they didn't have any kind of a political side to them.
Right.
And they were just perfect. They were the ideal, unique ancestors of the Swiss. And it was a very popular theme for the longest time. And they actually built a lake dweller village in Paris, right near the Eiffel Tower, in 1898 for the World's Fair, for example. It was really a theme. It was really, you know, it was an exciting discovery, if you like. But it turns out, unfortunately, that these villages, while they were built on poles, weren't built over the lake. They were built on the shore.
Okay.
Principally because it's a good way of keeping them dry and keep it away from rodents. But the lake was actually lower at the time.
Okay.
So it never actually existed. There's no more a lake dwellers culture than there is a culture of, say, people who live on the third floor of buildings.
Well,
but it was a marvelous fiction.
Yeah, sure.
And it also gave birth to another marvelous fiction, which is Lake Town in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit.
Oh, really?
I am convinced.
That's where that came from.
There's no evidence. There's no hard evidence of it. Okay. I am totally convinced he came through in 1911.
Right.
That would have been in the air, a very popular theme.
Yeah.
And it's just too big a coincidence to not have a connection.
Interesting.
So one fiction begets another, if you like.
Yeah. But, so the Latin culture is kind of the mythologized indigenous people of Switzerland.
The Latin culture is a much wider definition.
Okay.
Of that period of the Celtic Iron Age. But Latin and Hallstatt.
Oh, it has to do with their metallurgical possibilities.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Pot making and things.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's fascinating history, and it's all around us here.
Yeah.
You know, just across the lake at Mauvy, which is that hill just between here and Mora, where the Swiss, the Celtic Swiss tribes got together to decide if they were going to take up the fight with the Romans or not. And there was a huge fortification.
That was just here.
Yeah, it was just here, just across the lake.
Interesting.
And they decided not to.
Right.
And went to Burgundy.
Right.
Where it didn't really work out, so they sort of straggled back.
Yeah.
But this whole area is just filled with amazing events. Charles the Bold was defeated at Grandson, and the second time at Morat, just across the lake, both very, very close.
Right.
You know, there's just so many things happening in history.
Yeah.
It really is. It's really a concentration of history.
Interesting.
And, you know, and I find all of that to be enriching, fascinating,
Sure. Well, the Roman informs a lot of what you do, doesn't it?
It's one of the subjects that I love. History. I mean, history is such an odd term because it englobes literally everything. But history is basically about people and what they did that we can still appreciate.
Right.
And we live in. We're so privileged because we have museums, filled with wonderful things that we can go and see. We have researchers and academicians who've written fantastic books on history, on culture, on philology, on art, and all of that's at our fingertips. And it just makes the lives of all of these people who created all of these astonishing things, all of this art, makes it accessible to us. And my wife and I spend quite a bit of time in museums when we can. And what is a museum? A museum is a building full of old broken stuff that nobody wants, basically. But even a museum that's totally empty is full of people, because every mind and every hand that touched and created whatever is left in the museum is present. And that is as close as we can get to those people. And I find that to be really moving. So even a dry bit of pottery with a fingerprint in it, is fabulous.
Right.
And to be vulnerable and appreciative of all these things is what makes, I hope, what gives some interest in me in this process of fantasy art and illustration, which is often based on some kind of a vague historical context.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you have sort of one foot in the past in a certain way.
Or sometimes two.
Sometimes two. Let's turn and face the future just for a second. How do you see Switzerland continuing to evolve? Is it going to, you mentioned Switzerland as a small place surrounded by these giant countries referring back a century ago. But what about the future? It's still a small country surrounded by very, very large neighbors.
Yeah.
And you could even say now it's an island in the middle of the EU. Any thoughts on?
Yeah, I think this is just my personal opinion. I'm certainly not a politician. I'm certainly not an economist. I'm not a historian.
Right.
I have no knowledge any more than any man on the spreesure of what. But what I would hope for Switzerland are two things: is a rapid evolution socially, that things move a little faster in terms of equality, childcare. Just in terms of what
you have to see happen, or you wish to have.
I wish to see it happen much quicker.
Okay. Yes.
But I also appreciate the slowness of Switzerland in any momentous decision making.
Right.
And I think somehow these two things, this traditional conservative, slow process.
Things are deliberate here.
Things are deliberate and slow, and it takes years and years.
Yeah.
That needs to, I honestly feel that needs to be maintained in order to preserve Switzerland from any decisions made too quickly.
Right.
On the other hand, Switzerland could move a lot faster in terms of its own people.
Some things that maybe have already been deliberated.
Oh, they've been deliberated for so long.
Yeah.
Wage equality.
Right.
Well, you can ask companies forever.
Yeah.
To have wage equality. They're not necessarily going to do it. And once again, these are topics which are complicated.
Yeah.
Childcare needs, access to, oh God, I remember the name in English. What's a crèche in?
Nursery.
A nursery, yeah. Access to childcare, in all of those things need to be accelerated.
Right.
And, but on the other hand, Switzerland, I hope it maintains its traditional sort of, rhythm for international affairs.
Yeah.
So it's complicated and things take time. And I understand, that it's a process that needs to happen organically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a country that's very attractive to people who don't live here. And this will always be the case in part, because of the things that they don't understand about the country, right?
I mean, there is a subject that that the Swiss could tackle, and that is the in France they have the system of les intermittents du spectacle. How do you people who work in industries like the theater, the cinema, the entertainment industries can go on unemployment between jobs. Because the nature of their activity is,
because they're going to play for 3 months, and maybe
and then they can
unemployed for 6 months.
That's right. And Switzerland could afford to do that. New Zealand does that.
Okay.
Switzerland could certainly afford to do it, and Switzerland would create a body of craftspeople and artists who could respond to international demand. Whereas now, it's very, very complicated.
Interesting.
Most people who work in the arts, they have a second job.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford, they can't make ends meet.
Right.
And to have that possibility, in other words, to elevate the profession of creator, if you like, to a level where they could actually make a living doing it, would be a wonderful thing.
Sort of bridge these projects that they would be working on.
Absolutely.
All projects.
And that would bring in projects from abroad into Switzerland.
Projects and people, I see.
Projects and people, because, there's no reason that Switzerland can't have a film industry.
Yeah.
A real film industry with big films and
not just die Schweiz.
I mean, it's complicated. I understand, because that is also part of the politics of helping out filmmakers. Everyone gets a little bit of money.
Yes.
No one gets enough to make a real movie.
Right.
It's hard for them, I understand.
Okay.
But Switzerland could do it. That is a political decision. Artists are much appreciated, but they're expected to survive as best they can.
Okay.
And I think that is not necessarily a productive process as a whole.
Interesting.
New Zealand has a system where if you work a certain number of months, you can apply for, an interim unemployment. Yeah.
Right.
And suddenly that means you have this body of people who are ready to work because they haven't got a real job, a permanent job outside of their vocation.
Right.
And they can respond they're available, and they can respond to a big project coming in from abroad.
Right.
Literally overnight. You can get a team together in a month.
Yeah.
And that would be impossible here.
Interesting. So that's something you saw. Did you see that for the first time or realize what benefit it gave when you were in New Zealand?
It's
really, you've been aware of that before.
I wasn't necessarily aware of it before I understood how the film industry worked.
Right.
There's another thing that I would wish for Switzerland as well is places where people can be with people they don't know for no reason.
Sounds like fun.
It sounds like fun, yeah. I mean, if like the Italian town squares, where everybody's out in the evening and people are just socializing and being people.
Right.
And one of the things that I retained from Expo 02 here in Neuchâtel was it was an interview with someone who said, we stood in line for a long time to get into the pavilion, and we ended up talking to some Swiss Germans, and it was great. And I thought, well, there you go. There's your chance. The Switzerland needs these places,
ferments.
Just to promote social coherence, and it's complicated.
Interesting.
And I didn't express that very well.
But it's not. I mean, there are plenty of places where obviously, the people dying outdoors, for example.
Yeah,
it's not
the same.
Piazza culture.
No, it's not the piazza culture at all, for example. And the Swiss are very purposeful.
Yes.
Very deliberate, and like to organize.
Yes.
And it's a small dose of spontaneity, I think, would help.
That's
a little more relaxed, a little more, of course. And it's once again, that's also, I'm underlining a series of paradoxes and contradictions, because one of the things that I appreciate very much about Neuchâtel is the legendary discretion of its inhabitants. And so many people have told us, you can't make friends in Neuchâtel. It's hard to do. It's just that people are reserved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this happens to me all the time. So I'll see someone suddenly making a decision, and they'll come up and they'll say, Mr. Howe, I've wanted to talk to you for 10 years. I've never dared to do it. And there they are. And I always reply, well, I don't bite. And, but I understand that reserve.
Yeah. It's respecting your privacy.
It's respect.
Or
yes.
He thinks he needs to.
It's a form of shyness and respect, and not wishing to impose.
Right.
Which I really appreciate. And I think that's one of the grand qualities of this canton.
Yeah.
Is this, and the dependability of people.
Yeah.
I feel in a sense very much at home in that atmosphere.
Yeah, I can imagine.
No. It's quite different from other countries.
Would you have been able to do a project like this, like the Tour du Fantastique, where we're sitting now, anywhere else in the world?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, this project was an alignment of constellations, if you like, because the building was there,
right?
The desire to do something with it was there.
Right.
I was there.
Right. Did you need lots of connections to make this happen, or did you actually form connections in order?
I'm tempted to say I didn't do anything.
Come on.
But the city of Neuchâtel has invested a lot in this.
Yes.
The canton has made a huge investment.
Right.
The NIF has participated, and I'm sort of the ambassador, in that sense, if you like.
Okay.
And
you weren't the one going around and deal making to make this happen.
So I mean, I sat through 10 years of meetings.
Yeah.
With very little visible progress, and wondered if it would ever happen. At one point, because it's complicated.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Is this slowness
interests that? Well, it's the process.
Yeah.
And I know it's exactly the same in many other countries.
Right.
It's a complicated business to create that kind of energy, if you like. But here we are.
But it's so beautiful. And I think maybe I should mention that it's going to be opening on December the 18th, right?
On December the 18th, it ought to be open to the public.
Day, the Lausanne, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
And we have 4 floors of exhibition.
Yeah.
We have a boutique.
Really,
we have a fantastic cafe. Oh, also down the lowest floor with an amazing terrace, which in the summer is going to be the place to be.
Can you go up onto the roof?
You can go up. The 4th floor is conference room,
right,
and a small exhibition.
Okay,
yeah,
but not on the roof.
You can go onto the terrace of the medieval tower.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I saw on your website you're standing.
Yes. Yeah.
You're standing up on the.
That's the wonderful 10th century tower.
Yeah.
Which is one of the few remaining structures of.
That's the Tower of the Fantastic.
That is the tower. Yeah. Well, there's 2 buildings.
Yes.
This one was constructed in 1841, I believe. It was to replace the former prison, which was a much older building.
Right.
And the Tour du Fantastique is actually in three different buildings. There's the medieval tower,
okay,
which will be accessible from the Tour, and this building,
right,
which is called the Corps des Prisons, which is the building from 1841, and then we have a couple of floors in the building next door.
Oh, I see. Okay.
For the boutique and offices.
Are they connected, or you have to go out?
You have to go towards the entrance.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very, very complicated to get these to make all this work. But
the results are fantastic, really.
And there's a beautiful view.
Yeah,
it's quite a climb to get to the top.
Yeah,
and I'm
clear day you can see all the way to the Jungfrau. I think
you can see all of the Alps. You can see all the way to Mont Blanc. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very exciting. And I particularly like the fact that we're able to include the medieval tower in this complex, because it is one of the few ancient remains of Neuchâtel is still visible.
Right.
And there's actually stones. This is one of the anecdotes that I love. There's actually stone from the Roman villa in Colombier at the base of this tower.
Right. They were transported here.
They were transported here.
Form the foundation of the.
Well, they're not particularly thick. These ones. They're more like a cladding.
Oh, okay.
But these massive stones,
And they're identifiable as being somewhere else.
Yes, we've just done a book, which will be coming out as well for the inauguration.
Right.
On the two buildings, their history,
Yes.
the transformation into a museum, and then a larger opening out onto towers in fantasy.
Oh, great. I look forward to that.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it too. I've only seen the PDF so far, so I'm very excited that we're able to. It's one of these things. I guess it was about 2-3 years ago, during a meeting, I said we should do a book, and it sort of, I thought it all fallen on deaf ears entirely, and then the project came back up, and so we've edited this, which I hope will be the perfect souvenir book.
I'm sure you certainly have lots of material for a beautiful volume. That's for sure.
And there's also an exhibition catalog for this exhibition.
All right, nice. Now the exhibition will be maintained for at least a year, right? And then
Till October.
Till October
And then the museum will briefly close after October next year.
Right.
And the next exhibition will be installed.
Do you know already what that will be?
I do know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Our amazing director, Diane, will be looking after all that.
Okay. All right. So it's a long way off.
It's going to come up very quick.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a long way off.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last question, John.
Yes.
What advice would you give to someone who's considering moving to Switzerland? I mean, you've been here now for 40 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen, I don't want to inject myself into this, but I've been here for about the same time as you. And I've seen Switzerland change a lot over that time. I have my theories how it got, in my opinion, to be a more spontaneous place than it used to be. But if people ask me what I would advise them about coming, I've got a few things that of course you could say, well, get used to this and this and this. But in overall, what would be your reaction if someone said, I'm thinking about making this move?
I would say for anyone from abroad who would like to move to Switzerland would be to appreciate the complexity before forming an opinion, to learn that this complexity is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it maintains a form of stability and rationality, which is valuable in a country, especially now. But also that it's a country where you can have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's got an amazing history, which is all around us, under our feet, and everywhere you look. It has the advantage of having 3 or 4 distinct cultures.
Yeah.
It is astonishingly worldly.
Yes.
Compared to how it was 40 years ago.
Yes.
And Switzerland is once again I think you have to get past the cliches.
Yeah, and there are a lot of cliches, but they've been around for a long time. And I think most of them have been superseded in my opinion.
They're also part of popular culture. And I think
we're almost proud of them, aren't they?
Well, there's nothing wrong with having a label. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't it doesn't stop you from living.
Right.
And I think that Switzerland has a lot to offer.
Absolutely.
It has. You have to understand. Be patient to understand how the system works, because it is complex. But that complexity is what gave us Switzerland as it is today.
Yeah.
Through literally hundreds of years of quite troubled times.
That's right.
And there's
in the middle of it all.
And in the geographic, right in the middle. Absolutely.
Right.
And I think to appreciate the care that the Swiss take of their country.
Yes.
It is obviously a country with a high standard of living. therefore ecologically difficult to sustain.
Right.
But this idea that nature is part of our future, not just to go out weekends to have a picnic,
Right.
part of our survival,
Right.
I think is very important. And I appreciate the fact that the Swiss, even in such a tiny country, whose influence on, for example, in terms of climate change, is absolutely minuscule.
Yeah.
Switzerland makes the effort to have clean air, to do the right things. And that is a lesson for, other countries.
For everybody.
And it doesn't matter how small you are, you do your part.
Yeah.
And if you don't do your part and you say, well, it doesn't matter, we're so small. Well, no, it's not about that at all. That's not about what the future is.
Yeah, I think Switzerland is about participation and contribution. You see that in their the way that they run the country as in democracy at the lowest level.
Yeah.
Participation is very important.
It's also quite fun because, I am in the supermarket. I have trouble deciding what to buy for dinner, but I'm also being asked to choose planes for the army, So, that's quite a paradox. I need a bit of time to think about that. So there is the responsibility. There is the opportunity to actually be quite engaged on a personal level in the future of the country. And I also appreciate this idea that everything needs to be a collaboration and a compromise. And there isn't the sort of struggle between the bosses and the workers, or the people who govern and the people who are governed.
Right. Yeah.
And
Everybody's
those frontiers are fluid.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think Switzerland I honestly think Switzerland has a lot to offer.
Yeah.
But it needs an informed regard on the part of the people who
that's a good way of looking at it.
Appreciate it.
To fully appreciate Switzerland takes a little time.
It takes a long time.
Some of the things are different here than they would be in most other countries, and that.
And I'm also enchanted by the different, even the Swiss romande, because the German-speaking part of Switzerland I know much less well, because unfortunately I'm too lazy to learn to learn another language right now. But I appreciate the diversity between the Valais, the Jura, Vaud. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
They're neighbors, but they're different.
They're so different.
Yeah.
And, and that's, we've had the pleasure of, we do a lot of, I do a lot of conferences, I do a lot of book signings, a lot of, activities here and there, all over. And I've always appreciated,
I'm sure,
those opportunities.
Fantastic. Well, I can't thank you enough for spending time with us today, John.
Thank you.
Especially here in this wonderful spot where we're just surrounded by not just your work, but your ideas, and you can just sort of feel the place as being, beating to the same beat of your heart. It's fantastic.
I'd like to add, if I could, that I think concerning fantasy in general, fantasy art, there's also in my mind an ecological side to it, because much of the narratives that are to be found in the images that are in this exhibition promote another connection with nature than simply the commercial one.
Yes.
A question of resources.
Right.
There is in fantasy literature and fantasy art, there's often a connection with nature which is profound, complex, and part of these worlds that the fantasy literature invites us to explore. And I think, in a sense, fantasy can tell us that we need to reestablish a connection which is not simply economic with nature and world.
Right.
We need to find something that connects us to it much more deeply than we've had tendency to do in the past. And that is prevalent in fantasy literature. And fantasy literature is full of propositions. It's full of what ifs.
Right.
And these are wonderfully separated from any political consideration. They're entwined in a story. They're woven into a narrative.
Sure.
And we can appreciate them without actually realizing what we're reading. And then you get into the end and you think, oh yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
And that's something that I would like to try and bring through with the art, is that there is nature is not just a backdrop. It's not just, a weekend thing.
Yeah.
It's an integral part of our lives. It's an actor in our world, and we need to respect that.
That's very inspirational, and you feel it here. You really do.
Oh, thank you
So
very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Pleasure.